Saturday afternoon, late summer, 2019, September 21st. And we're missing some faces here. Those bodies are unmistakable. Alice T. and Henry, excuse me, what's that? William H. William H. I knew there was a Henry in there somewhere. It is Henry, right? William Henry Minor. All right. We're at the Minor Institute, Minor Farm. What else can I call this place?
You could also call it Heart's Delight Farm.
Heart's Delight Farm.
Which is what it was called when Alice and William lived here.
All right.
Between 1903 and 1950. So today we are celebrating Alice in particular. The Heart's Delight Farm was her home for many years. She loved living here, she loved Chazy, and so we wanted to hold this event here today kind of in her honor to kind of recognize her part in making Heart's Delight what it was.
So it's a tribute to Alice T. Minor. And,
right.
And you are who?
I'm Ellen Adams, and I am the director-curator of the Alice T. Minor Museum.
All right, which is just down the road a piece.
Just down the road, yep.
Right in the heart of beautiful downtown Chazy.
Chazy, yes.
And a minor farm for the two or three people that don't know. Heart's Delight was started by William H. Minor, and he made his money in the railroad business and never forgot his roots and came back here. And I'm going to take a cough drop. All right, I'm back, and so we're celebrating Alice T. Minor today. And you celebrate Alice T. Minor every day at the museum,
We sure do, yes. So we chose this particular date because her birthday is September 23rd. So we thought this would be an appropriate date.
Today's a Saturday, better than doing it on a Monday.
Yes. And we chose animals as our theme for this event because Alice was a great animal lover. She had many pets over the course of her life, both here at the farm and in Chicago. We've got some pictures of her with some of her various animals posted outside the wall of the exhibit. So we are doing some animal-themed crafts today. And we are also collecting donations to support Elmore SPCA.
Which is a place for animals that have need a new home.
Exactly.
All right, so Alice, I know William Minor died around 1930, I believe.
1930, yep.
And so she lived to 1950. So
Exactly.
did she stay here at Heart's Delight?
Yes.
I know they had several cottages, what they called them.
Yes, so she continued to live at Heart's Delight Cottage, and she did quite a bit of traveling as well, and she would occasionally go back to their old home in Chicago, but for the most part, this was her home, and she kind of spent a lot of time working with the school, with Physicians Hospital, kind of the other organizations that William had been involved with.
Yeah, so we
stepped in and kind of took his place in a lot of ways.
No, yes, we can't forget that William Minor built the Physicians Hospital and also built Chazy School, and was such a huge benefactor to the entire area. Yes. And he made lots of money, but he was very good to his community that he came from.
Had a strong sense of community responsibility. Yep.
I don't think I've ever asked you this before. Yeah. Where did you come from originally? You a native to the area?
I am not. So I have lived in Plattsburgh since 2012. I grew up on Long Island. And sort of in between there and here, I have lived in Virginia, in Pennsylvania, and in Michigan.
You get around.
Yeah, but I'm very happy to be back in my native state. So and I love Plattsburgh and the North Country. So it's been really wonderful to learn kind of about the history of this area. It's completely unfamiliar to me before I moved here.
Right.
So it's been really great.
All right. So you've got this lovely little cutout here where people can stick their head through.
If you ever wanted to know what it was like to be Alice or William Minor, this is your chance to find out.
Of course, they're in black and white here, and the face would be in full color. So just
we added a little tint to it.
The elephants, yeah.
But there actually aren't that many pictures of Alice and William Minor together. This is one of the few that we could find that shows both of them. So William was often the photographer. So
Uh-huh.
we have lots of pictures of Alice taken by William, but not as many of him.
Fortunately,
I've got it right here.
he did have some film made, and there's
Yes.
even film of when they constructed the $1 Million Dam and the stuff going on here at the farm. So
Yeah, he really liked to document his projects with photography and with film, which has been a great resource for us as historians.
yeah, and of course I'm sure he showed those to his visiting millionaire friends
oh, yeah,
when they showed
absolutely. Yes.
up,
yes.
entertain them, because he did hobnob with
Oh, yeah.
other rich and
yeah,
famous
there were
people.
always people coming to visit here at Hearts Delight. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm sure he came up with many ways to entertain them.
So the museum, what are your hours there?
So we are open Tuesday through Saturday from May through December. And we give guided tours each day that we're open at 10, at noon, and at 2.
All right, it's almost 2 o'clock. It's on a Saturday. Who's going to give the guided tour?
Yeah, today we're going to be hanging out here, but
Oh,
normally
okay.
we are at the museum. So yeah, just stop on by at any of those times and we're happy to show you around.
No appointment
No
necessary.
appointment necessary, no.
All right. So Animal Day here. So I saw some cats running around. Is there other?
There are some cats, there are some horses. They were in this pasture earlier. They must have gone to a different area.
Oh,
But yeah,
no more buffalo though.
no more buffalo.
They were long gone when you got here.
Yeah, obviously there used to be a lot more animals here than there are now, but we were glad to have the cats come out and participate a little bit. They seem to be enjoying the cat toys that we were making. So
Well, yes. Well, it's
Yeah.
nice. It's tough to train cats to do that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. You know. So yes, that's quite a cool on your part to
Yeah.
train those cats. All right. Anything else I should ask you?
I don't think so.
All right. So, unless you want to stick your head, go stick your head in
I'll
there.
stick my
We'll see
head in
what
there.
she'd
I'll
look
be
like as Alice.
Okay, that may be the problem.
There we go. There's
No.
there's Alice T. Minor right there. And will this be available at other times if people want to take advantage of this?
Yeah, I'm sure we will definitely be bringing this out at future events for sure. Yes.
So plan on it.
Plan on it. Keep an eye out for it.
Okay. Is there little steps there for a young
Yes, there
person
are.
wants
There
to?
are. Yes, if
So
you
if
need
a smaller
boost.
person
Yep.
wants to stick their head in there, they can. All right.
Yes,
So watch for this at future Alice T. and William H. Minor events. So we're going to impose now on this young lady. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Rachel Dutel.
And what are you doing here?
Well, I do PR and marketing here at Minor Institute, and I'm here helping out with the event today.
All right. So you must enjoy yourself every day you show up to work, huh?
I can't complain too much, that's for sure.
All right. So pet themes. Are these Jack and Toga?
Yeah, so here is just a small collage of some of the pets in and around Hearts Delight Farm. Jack and Toga actually were the Chicago pets of William and Alice Minor, but they were...
That's why I never saw them.
Right. But they were very fond of their pets, as you can see from these images.
Yeah, so they had dogs and cats.
Yep.
Aunt Hulda.
Yeah, so Aunt Hulda raised William Minor after he was orphaned. So she and Uncle John owned the original farm that ultimately became Hearts Delight Farm.
Right. William Minor was orphaned and he came to Chazy to live with his aunt and uncle.
That's right.
And he liked it so much, he adopted Chazy instead of the other way around. Mm-hmm. And so pictures of their pets. So there is a nice photo collection, and I know a few years back you've discovered a whole new batch of photos that.
That's right. Sort of spurred the creation of the exhibit. That's right.
Yeah, and you've got a museum there that's just right here. When is this open to the public on a regular basis, or what's the story on that?
So the Heritage exhibit is open from the beginning of May through the end of October, typically just during the week from 9 to 3. But if we have an event that's happening on the weekend during that time frame, we do open up the exhibit to be part of that event. And it's free to come and visit the exhibit.
So you don't have somebody stationed in there at all times, so people can just come up and
That's
wander
right,
in?
yeah. So the exhibit is meant to be self-guided, but we do offer guided group tours, and you can just call us to arrange that.
But, you know, during the summer, the kids are home, and as long as your kids are behaved,
That's right. That's right.
they're going to come in there and...
Yeah. Well, and, you know, typically there are staff in and around the Institute, so if you had any questions about something specific, you could certainly ask us.
All right. Okay. And this isn't Alice's chair here, I know that.
No, it's not, but it does belong here at the Institute. It's a great place to sit and or to take a selfie, right?
Okay. And you've got a film, you said?
Yeah, so typically in this theater over here is the 100 Years and Growing video, which sort of chronicles the changes in agriculture as well as the changes here at this property over the past century. But today, for this special event, we have a relatively new video that Paul Frederick has just done this spring for the Alice T. Miner Museum, and it's about a 10-minute video about Alice, which is really great. So we are showing it in our 100 Years and Growing Theater today for this event.
And everything Paul Frederick does is first rate.
That is for sure, yes.
great.
We can't, you know, praise him enough. He does excellent work.
Yeah. Let's go inside.
Okay.
All right, we are inside. And is this a talkie or is this a silent movie?
No, it tells the whole story.
Oh, wow.
Alice Emma Trainer was born on September 23, 1863, in Goderich, Ontario, Canada. Goderich was a town of about 4,000 people, located at the mouth of the Maitland River on Lake Huron, that boasted of being the prettiest town in Canada. Alice's parents, Bernard Trainer and Louisa Saunders, had emigrated from Britain to Ontario in the late 1840s. Alice was their 7th child, and one of 8 who survived to adulthood. While we do not have much information about Alice's early years, we do know that the Trainer family were members of the Wesleyan Methodist Church, and Alice was baptized at the age of 4. Her father was Huron County's High Constable, which would have given the family a certain degree of social status, if not a lot of money. Alice attended the Central School in Goderich, where her oldest sister, Matilda, was a teacher. When Alice was 6 years old, her mother died in childbirth, leaving Matilda to take on the additional responsibilities of running the household and helping to raise her siblings. By the time Alice was in her late teens, her father had also died, and 2 of her brothers had moved to Chicago in search of job opportunities. In 1887, Alice and her 3 sisters, Matilda, Bertha, and Louise, decided to join the boys in Chicago. Chicago in the late 1880s was the fastest growing city in the United States. The 1890 census would show a total population of just over 1 million, with more arriving every day. The city had made an almost miraculously rapid recovery from the disastrous Great Fire of 1871 and was beginning to plan for the World's Columbian Exposition of 1893. While Chicago had a reputation for focusing on commerce above all else, city leaders were also establishing cultural institutions, such as the Art Institute, the Chicago Symphony, and the University of Chicago. But Chicago was also a city of extreme divides between the rich and poor, and home to a vibrant and occasionally violent labor movement. 1893 was a momentous year for Chicago, and it was too for Alice, for this was when she met her future husband, William H. Miner. Born in Wisconsin in 1862, William came to Chazy after being orphaned at the age of 10. For the next 8 years, he lived on the Miner family farm with his Uncle John and Aunt Huldah. Will returned to the Midwest in his late teens and began working in the railroad business, developing the skills in drafting and engineering that he used to design and build railroad cars and their components. In 1890, he came to Chicago and began working as a mechanical superintendent for the California Fruit Transportation Company, a pioneer in the long-distance transportation of fresh produce in refrigerated railroad cars. Will traveled frequently on business, and the surviving letters he wrote to Alice during his absences give us a peek into the early years of their relationship. During the summer of 1893, Will seemed equally enthralled by the World's Fair and by Alice. Will and Alice explored the fair together with her sisters and with visiting friends, on foot and on bicycles. The fair's exhibits provided endless inspiration, as well as a vision of the future in which technology, commerce, and art would join together to create the ideal City Beautiful. While working for California Fruit, Will was also perfecting what would become his first patented piece of railroad gear, the tandem draft rigging. He made his first sale in 1894 and began building up his own business even in the midst of a severe economic depression. With their financial security seemingly assured, Alice and William were married on June 10, 1895. They continued to live with Alice's three sisters in the Kenwood neighborhood on Chicago's South Side. During this period, Alice began keeping scrapbooks of articles clipped from newspapers and popular magazines, which give us a glimpse into her developing interests in art, music, literature, and architecture. She sometimes joined William on his business travels and enjoyed exploring the United States. Back home in Chicago, she took guitar lessons and formed a mandolin club with a group of like-minded friends. William's interest in photography and their household of lively pets provided much fodder for amusement. In March 1902, after almost 7 years of marriage, Alice gave birth to a long-awaited child, William Henry Minor Jr. But sadly, William Jr. died when he was only 10 days old. Alice, now in her late 30s, probably knew that having another child was unlikely, and this tragic event may have led Alice and William to turn their attention to Shazy. William had inherited the family farm when his uncle John Minor died in 1895, though he does not seem to have considered living there until some 8 years later. But having made the decision, in characteristic fashion, he plunged into the business, rapidly expanding and modernizing the old farm. In addition to the new farm buildings that were constructed, work began on their country home, known as Heart's Delight Cottage. While Will managed the overall project, the furnishing and decorating of the home would primarily have been Alice's responsibility. Over the next decade, as Heart's Delight Farm grew and became more of a showplace, more and more guests came to visit and enjoy a taste of idealized country life. Walks in the woods, boating, horseback riding, and archery were just a few of the pleasures afforded by Heart's Delight, along with delicious meals, a well-stocked library, and games of cards. Alice's career as a collector also seems to have begun in Shazy. According to one story, her friends in Chicago were worried that she would be bored in the country and encouraged her to find a hobby. It is true that Alice's friend Emma Hodge was an experienced and knowledgeable collector of ceramics, and she provided encouragement and advice. China collecting was a popular pastime among middle and upper-class American women at the turn of the century, and rural areas were fruitful grounds for China hunts. Alice and her fellow collectors were especially interested in the blue and white transferware and other ceramics that were commonly found in American homes in the early 19th century. They associated these pieces with the gentility and refinement of pre-industrial America and saw them as symbols of the importance of domestic life and women's role in the household. While China collecting was evidently a passing phase for some women, for Alice it led to a lifelong interest in early American material culture and a deeper engagement in what came to be known as the colonial revival movement, an interest in documenting, preserving, and in some cases, recreating the places and things associated with the founding era of the United States. In 1916, William and Alice purchased an early 19th century structure in Shazy Village and began developing plans to turn it into a museum. Alice worked with architect Frederick B. Townsend, who had also designed the Chazy Central Rural School and many of the structures at Heart's Delight Farm. Plans for the building went through several stages, evolving from a conventional museum with galleries and display cases to the period rooms of the colonial home as it was ultimately built. Construction on the museum began in March 1924 and was largely completed by the end of 1925, although the decorating and furnishing of the rooms would continue to evolve for several more years. Alice purchased the museum's carpets, wallpaper, and light fixtures from her favorite Chicago department store, Marshall Field. The rest of the pieces in each room came from a range of sources: antique dealers in New England, New York, and Chicago, friends and fellow collectors, and individuals throughout Clinton County who generously donated family heirlooms. Like many collectors and museum curators during this period, Alice Miner was motivated both by a love of the past and concerns about the present and future. She had a particular vision of what colonial America had been like, a primarily agrarian society of independent farmers, craftspeople, and merchants, most of whom were of British descent, Protestant, and English-speaking. But what Alice saw in Chicago at the turn of the century was happening all over the United States, if on a smaller scale. The country was rapidly industrializing, urbanization was well underway, and a massive influx of immigrants from Southern and Eastern Europe was changing the face of the nation. How could the United States continue to maintain its democratic traditions under such changed conditions? The colonial revival was one way of addressing this problem. Its proponents valued early American material culture for its historic and artistic value, but they also saw it as a valuable teaching tool. If Americans could see for themselves the places in which the founders of our nation had lived, perhaps these great men would seem more human and spark an interest in the past, which in turn would promote patriotism and civic engagement. Moreover, 20th century collectors were great believers in the power of environment to shape behavior. They felt that by recreating physical settings of early America, they could revive the values associated with that period, thereby counteracting the forces of change that threatened to undermine social and political stability. Today, we have a broader view of our nation's past and a more inclusive vision of what it means to be an American. But Alice's collection still has much to teach us. From settees to samplers, the objects she chose have stories to tell about the times in which they were made. But they also tell us as much about Alice herself.
All right, years ago when I'd come here, there would be buffalo roaming around this area, but they've been gone for a couple of decades now. But we have some nice horses. Are these all Morgan horses?
They sure are. Yep. We have about 20 or 29 of those Morgan horses around the property.
20 or 29, that's quite a little gap.
28 or 29. Now, they never give me an exact answer, Calvin.
That way if one's missing, yeah.
No, every day I can ask our farm manager how many cows we have, and he'll say I milked 400 today. I never get a straight answer on the horses, but it's just under 30.
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
So they add a lot.
All right, and your name, sir?
I'm Rick Grant.
Yes, and you're
I'm president here at Miner Institute.
president.
Yeah.
All right.
Not sure what that means, but
So how long have you been here, Rick?
I have been here since 2003. If you
That's
can believe
16 years and counting.
It is. It's hard to believe time's flown like that, but it's a great opportunity. It's a way for me to come home.
So
Yeah.
come home, what does that mean? Where are you from?
I'm from Potsdam.
Okay.
I grew up on a dairy farm halfway between Potsdam and Canton. Yeah, it's about a 40 cow tie stall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next to the big GLF, what they have? GLF towers there somewhere in Canton?
There was a big GLF in Canton and Potsdam both back in the day. Yeah.
I seem to remember some big tanks and stuff that was there
Oh, yeah,
around
yeah.
Route 11.
Yep.
So anyway, so
Yeah.
you came back home.
Did.
Yeah.
Did. Yeah, it was a chance to, well, closer than Lincoln,
Yeah.
Nebraska was, which is where I moved from anyway, right? So,
So just a little bit closer.
yeah, for sure.
Within driving distance.
Yeah.
So what type of stuff, with William Miner had his vision, and and for a while this huge farm he had accumulated was sold off. A lot of it was no longer here, but in the recent past you've gotten back into the farming business, huh?
Yeah, well, I don't know if the farming ever went away.
No, it
but
never
I'd
did
say-
go completely, but
Yeah, but it started back my immediate predecessor, Charlie Sniffen, who you probably knew. A lot
Yeah.
of people around here would still know him. He was hired by the trustees in the early 1990s, and his goal was to bring the research and the education component back, make it more obvious and vital at the Institute. And I came here in 2003 and kind of took what Charlie had started, and we have a great staff, and they've been growing ever since. And so now we do a lot of dairy and equine focused education and a lot of research focused mostly on forage use and things like that, cropping, but how to get more efficient milk production and cow comfort, all those kind of things.
so even though
It's
you're
fun.
milking 400 head, you're doing it, and you're still experimenting as far as the crops and
Oh, absolutely.
and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of different things, but probably our main focus would be, so we have great climate and soil for growing crops here, corn and also grasses, and our goal really is how can we best feed them to the cows to get good milk production, good components, and we have an agronomist on staff. We have a lot of nutritionists. We have an agronomist on staff too, and her job is to look at how we do it without really messing up the environment too much. So we try to be good stewards. How do we, apply manure, looking at nitrogen, phosphorus, how that's used in the Champlain Valley. It's a big issue.
yes.
So, yeah, huge issue actually. And so a lot of our research is aimed at using tile drainage and stuff like that to try to, get good milk production, but also be good stewards of the land.
And I know experimenting with like corn. Oftentimes I'll go by one of your cornfields and I'll see at least 2 different types of corn side by side.
Oh
'cause-
yeah. We have quite a few plots around here. Some of them are Cornell plots as well. We have a number of not nutritionists, of plant scientists from Cornell that come up and they run the plots over here to our south. But our own group does quite a bit of it as well, looking at corn hybrids or some of the sorghums, things of that nature. Yeah. So.
And you have several workshops and talks throughout the course of the year that held across the road at the former college.
Yep, the Joseph Burke Education and Research Center, now named after our long, 30-year trustee. He died a year ago, but
Yep.
yeah, he sure lives on. So yeah, about 4,000 people a year come through the stone gates, we like to say out here, and a lot of those are dairy farmers or dairy industry folks, but also equine and people involved in crops. So yeah, and more actually try to get just the general public to come in for things like today, but also open houses and things of that nature, just so people can understand more about modern production ag. Yeah, I think there's a big need for that in the community.
And I know a week ago I was unable to make it, but you had a lot of talks and even a field trip regarding the Altona Flat Rock and the forest fire, and so you're constantly doing that type of a stuff. And
Right, so obviously as an institute we don't do much of anything with our Flat Rock property in terms of research and so forth, but it's a huge educational resource, and it's amazing how this unplanned for event, this huge fire up there, is now a year later has become a research focus for the folks on campus at SUNY, and like you said, last Friday and Saturday we had this great fire prevention, controlled burn sort of workshop, and kind of thinking maybe in the future should we do things a little differently at the Flat Rock, to try to manage things so hopefully it won't be out of control fires as often in the future.
yes,
Yeah, it's something we don't think about, but it's a big
Right.
issue for the community around here.
yeah,
for
you don't
sure.
think of setting a fire as a good idea, but sometimes
No.
you'd have to just to.
Some of the speakers who do that, one of the guys, I think it was called it's down near Albany, they have a large preserve down there, and they've specialized in having these controlled burns in heavily populated areas right in the Capital District. And this guy said, yeah, normally you don't want to hear the word fire and population together, but it can work, I guess. I don't know much about it, but it's something we need to look into.
That's what the experts
Flat
are
Rock's
for.
a lot of acres up there. Yeah.
And how were the
Now,
blueberries this year?
I'm told they're pretty good. I didn't make it up there to pick any, but yeah. We had some people who come in and get the permits to go up there at the time of year, and they said they were pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over a century ago, that was people made their living picking those blueberries, and so it was certainly a part of our North Country history. So, growing up in Potsdam, had you heard of William H. Miner at all, even fleetingly?
Well, I heard of the Miner Institute because I grew up on a dairy farm, right? This would have been in the 70s, you know, when I was growing up. And once or twice we came over for one of their dairy day, one of their, you know, day-long type things. And so I didn't know much about it, but I knew it was over here. And from my perspective, growing up in Potsdam, New York, it seemed like a huge long drive to take Route 11 all the way from Potsdam to Chazy, New York. But no, I'd heard of it.
I always take 11B, so I saved 3-4 miles.
Probably my dad did too. I was young enough. I wasn't driving at that point, but yeah. No, I'd heard of it, so it's kind of cool to come back here and now actually be part of the team, you know, and just, I think we're doing a good service for the industry with our research and our education programs here. Feel good about it.
So you've got horses, you've got cows, you still got goats?
No goats.
No goats?
Nope, we only have 3 types of animals. We have about 30 or so Morgans. We've got the Holstein herd, about 420 of those, and we've got about half a dozen cats.
Lots of cats.
So honestly, just the horses and the cows nowadays, and about a little over 1,000 acres of cropland to do, you know, support our herd and the horses and do research on, and then we have thousands of acres of more, like at the Flat Rock area, more of the, you know, the foothills of the Adirondacks, the wooded acres, which we don't do much research with, but they're a good resource for the Plattsburgh State Environmental Science people, and also CV Tech. The BOCES kids come up there. The forestry program uses them quite extensively as well. So get some forestry experience.
Yeah. You know, with the jack pine and everything else that's going on up there. You know, Ken Adams and Dave Franzi both took us on tours years ago, and we learned so much in just a brief, short period of time. So I can imagine the students coming up there and spending days with these guys, how much they can, the knowledge they can gather.
Yeah, and the fall semester that we're in right now, it's all environmental science or Plattsburgh State students. And some of them actually live in our dorms. Some commute nowadays, but every day it's neat. Every day it's one course. So they have 2 or 3 hours of lecture and discussion in the morning. Then all afternoon, weather permitting, they're out in the field, either up at the Flat Rock or out the Chazy River, over on the farm if they're doing some nutrient management work. So they really get heavily involved. It's
hands-on,
15 weeks of it. It's a great experience for these students.
And they're not stuck in a classroom, so it just...
No, I think that's the way students learn best, really. I mean, you learn a little bit, right?
Oh, yeah.
A little bit of lecture, but then they're out there, whatever it is, they're doing, taking water samples out of the river, looking at phosphorus content, for instance, or they're over in the barn doing a mock, you know, we say CAFO inspection, but, you know, nutrient management type of, you know, inspection of the dairy farm. So they're actually getting some really hands-on experience. It'll help them when they try to find a job. A lot of them are seniors, you know, so the real world is knocking at their door, so to speak. So no, it's all good.
And throughout the course of the year, even in the summer, you've got students that are here, don't you?
Yeah, all year round. So in the summer, we have about a 10-week summer experience course, we call it, and it's internships in equine, of course. So the courses are gone now, but equine, and
they found the shade.
Yeah, they're pretty smart. Then on the dairy side, and then we also have ag research interns, and those kids are probably destined for graduate school, maybe vet school, but a lot of them are just looking for hands-on experience with, you know, large animals, whether they're pre-vet or just going into the industry. You know, it's a great experience. And in the spring we have primarily University of Vermont dairy science majors who come over, and of course they're all about hands-on and learning how to be sort of the future farmers, if you will, of America, of the area. A lot of them are from farms and plan to go back to farms. So every semester, every time of the year is a different type of student, right? But it kind of makes it fun.
Yes, I can imagine.
Absolutely,
So, like I was told Rachel, every day must be a fun day when you show up to work at a place like this.
I couldn't agree more. No place is perfect, but this is about as close as I've found, for sure. And so it's a great team, and it's a great, beautiful location, right?
And if the weather were like this 150 days a year, you wouldn't complain either, would you?
That's probably not realistic, but it'd be okay in my book. No, it's a great part of the world to be working in. It's great to be carrying on the Miner legacy, right? That's really, for all of us, that's really what it's all about. It sounds a little hokey, but it's the truth, you know. If William and Alice were here today, we'd like to think they'd feel good about how we've carried on what they wanted to see Heart's Delight Farm evolve into. And then also, you know, of course, the Alice Museum in the village. So I feel good about it.
That's well said. Thank you, Rick.
Yeah, well, thank you.
All right. So that's a brief look at what was happening here today. this September 21st, 2019 at the Heart's Delight Farm. And if you haven't visited here in a while, please consider it. If you can't make it this year, as Rachel said, the museum is open in the summer months on the days of the week, not on the weekends, but during the week. And there's so much to be learned here. Just roaming around, you're gonna find something. And if the youngsters are with you, it's something that they could learn and appreciate where this country came from. It came from farms. Now, of course, not farms like Heart's Delight. This was an exceptional farm, but he was always at the cutting edge and new practices. And he, over 100 years ago, was laying tile in his fields and also on the cutting edge. So they continue to do an outstanding job here at Miner Institute and Heart's Delight Farm, and we applaud them. So thanks for watching and supporting viewer-supported local television, Hometown Cable. TV we think is worthy of your support. Again, thank you for watching.